Gather round, heroes, and join me for an in-depth look at the classes of Demeo. In this episode, we listen to the tale of Molthas, singer of the mortal sonnets. Molthas is not to be underestimated. Being a bard, one might just see his flair and quirks tainted with poetic gestures and words. But do not be deceived, as he is a combatant to be feared and a singer of the once-lost songs that leave enemies ravaged. He is a mid-ranged fighter with magical damage focus. Equinox is Molthas' dagger, made from Thygolian steel, a weapon that has slain many victims throughout its lifespan. Recently, ownership has fallen to Molthas, and he uses it with deadly elegance, not fearing to fight dirty. Courage Shanty is his replenishing card. No roll is required to use it. It has short range and can target any friendly unit, including charmed enemies and emplacements, but not himself. The Shanty grants the Courageous status for 3 turns. Multiple applications reset the duration and also increase the power. Technically, the duration is 4 turns, which drops to 3 at the beginning of the recipient's turn. This is because defensive statuses count down before the character's turn, while offensive boosts count down after, and this card provides both. This method guarantees 3 turns of offensive and defensive boost, but it also opens up a tiny exploit. Characters who act before the bard actually receive protection for 4 monster moves. It's a nice consolation when a character wanders too far away, but it also lets you maintain Courageous 1 on 4 characters, if that's your thing. In order to get this working, the bard will need to act last, and you'll have to let each Courageous 1 expire before using Courage Shanty again. Some players prefer the bard last, as being downed doesn't disrupt the flow of Courage Shanty, but there's a downside to this. Unless he is the key holder, the bard is guaranteed to lose a turn when exiting a level, making it impossible to keep Courageous active on 3 characters. The bard could actually take the time to fully buff the entire party before heading into level 1. Taking 9 turns to prep is pretty boring, but at least you can get your first Courage Shanty going. And be careful if you see 2 characters with 2 turns remaining at the start of the level. That doesn't give you a freebie because you don't want to see 2 characters with 1 turn remaining next turn. Combos. Slow and steady is the mantra for whoever wants a Courageous buff. Mistakes will be made, overzealous players will charge into the fray, and courage will fade. Everyone in the party should donate their first swiftness potion to the bard, so he can overcome those mistakes. A speedy bard is good for the entire party.
Don't fear any foe.
There are other ways to deal with this, so keep an eye out for one more thing, regroup, and teleport to ensure your party is buffed to the max. If you have a full 4-player game and are dedicated to Courage Shanty, this card is going to account for half your actions if you let it. You'll find yourself able to contribute more with a handful of 0 action point cards, such as Panic Powder, Bones, Torch, Bottle of Lie, and Water Flask. Courageous 1 starts off with 1 point of damage reduction. That makes the target immune to environmental damage like slime and poison. They also take no damage from the poison status. And minor enemies like rats and goblin rangers end up doing 0 damage. That lets them prioritize enemies which do at least 2 damage, and even take on a bit of a guardian mindset where they intentionally position themselves to take hits in order to protect the bard and other characters. Combos. Other players are the best recipients, but especially in a solo play, you can use this on friendlies and even emplacements. Courageous 2 additionally grants +1 damage to all attacks.
And that's all I have to say about that.
Combos. This extra damage weaponizes certain cards which normally do 0 damage. Water Flask has no roll and takes no action points to use, and the single point of damage it does from Courageous 2 is perfect for clearing sand piles in a 3x3 area while reaping bunches of mana at the same time. Water Flask does soft damage. It doesn't affect lamps or get a damage boost from the frozen status. A normal hit with poison bombs and launch poison lamps start doing 1 damage too, releasing poison gas and also detonating oil lamps, getting double the fire damage in the overlapping area. Courageous 3 is the apex of power. Attacking has a chance to also cause an enemy to panic for 2 turns, preventing it from taking any action other than random movement. Area of effect attacks are good at spreading panic to a large group, even if they do low damage. Simply moving without attacking has a chance to spread panic to all enemies within 5 spaces and line of sight. This will make them move immediately, the same way as if they were panicked by witnessing the death of one of their buddies.
This will cause some aid.
If Kana has Courageous 3, she can actually scare off her own prey before she can strike, one of the only times you'll see her miss an attack. Combos. Water Flask is the perfect carrier for a Courageous 3 buff. Liquid Courage, if you will. Really, it's more like Liquid Panic. It also buffs misses that hit targets. This can mitigate the risk of certain cards that still hit for 0 damage on a miss. This includes Coin Flip, Talik's Hook Strike, and Whirlwind Attack. Hurricane Anthem is a starting card, a short-ranged summons that unleashes a thrashing hurricane into an empty space for 3 turns. The Hurricane has 3 action points, moving 1 to 4 spaces each time. It must end a turn on an empty space, but it can pass through enemies, doing 2 damage. The soft damage does not damage lamps, and it does not get extra damage from frozen targets. If you want a Hurricane to hit a particular target, make sure it has a landing spot on the other side. Though it targets enemies, and will travel a great distance to reach them, it will not hesitate to run over party members if they are in the way. Sometimes it does exactly what you want, but often it does something completely unexpected and logic-defying. Song of Recovery is the second starting card. No roll is required, and it has long line-of-sight range. All friendlies in a 3x3 area, including Charmed, immediately heal 2 hit points. This revives downed characters. Most negative statuses are removed, such as Poisoned, Corrupted, Frozen, and Petrified. This makes the Bard a valuable ally against Ice Elementals and Gorgons. It does not remove environmental statuses such as Wet and Tangled. Finally, targets receive the Recovery status for 3 turns. That's an extra 2 healing at the beginning of every turn for a total of 8 points.
Let's begin.
The status is lost if the character is downed. And note that the Recovery status doesn't do anything against Poisoned and other negative statuses. It's actually the use of the Song of Recovery itself that removes them. Hymn of Obstruction requires no roll. It has long range and can target any enemy or empty space. It silences enemies in a 3x3 area for 3 turns, blocking magical abilities such as Petrification, Ice Shot, Fire Shot, Weakened, and Summoning. It does not affect elemental death explosions, webs, theft, and arrows. A rule of thumb is to use it against anything with Mage, Mystic, Cleric, or Rift Servant in its name. Piercing Voice is one of Molthas' attack cards. It affects a line up to medium range, targeting enemies, lamps, and empty spaces. Friendlies on this line take no damage. Enemies take 2 damage or 4 on a crit, and have a chance to be confused for 2 turns. Monsters which are confused move and attack at random, so long as they have the melee attack ability. Other creatures, with only ranged and special attacks, will do nothing. If they are also panicked, they will run away. If a confused creature takes any damage, the confusion ends. That reduces the effectiveness of confusion in scenarios with friendlies and emplacements, which attack at random and can easily bring the affected enemies back to their senses. Shattering Voice is another attack card, causing a burst up to medium range. Enemies in a 5x5 area of effect take 1 damage or 3 on a crit, and have a chance to be confused for 2 turns. The main target doesn't move, but secondary targets in the AoE are pushed 2 spaces away from the center point. Friendlies are not harmed or moved, and this card is very useful against enemies which are swarming the party, such as the Root Lord's Vines.
This ends now.
This tune is particularly handy against Ice Elementals, and deals an extra 5 points of damage to them. Song of Resilience was written by the Bard of Bards, Jera Fro. It summons magical armor to protect your allies up to medium range. This card has good mana value. Friendlies in a 3x3 area are granted 5 armor points. This stacks up to a maximum of
This will
10.
make you stronger.
These are separate from the Guardian's replenishable armor, and they are the first thing damaged by attacks. You can maximize the benefit of this card by using it when everyone is together, either at the beginning of a level or after a regroup. This episode's challenge is simply to defeat the Rat King with nothing but bards. It's been done, there's videos out there, and good luck.
Is there any way we can figure out where the Gorgon is? Because if
The Bard will find it easiest to maintain the party when he's the first character. He can immediately remove debuffs that occur during monster movement, so frozen and petrified status won't make anybody lose a turn unless it's the Bard himself. If he ends up with the key or moves before the key holder, he doesn't miss a turn at the end of the level, and he can keep the cycle of courage shanty uninterrupted. Player 1 burns a turn at Kleeptos, and loses a turn from all buffs, and since the Bard can't use courage shanty on himself, nobody loses a turn of courageousness. And finally, he has the entire party together at the start of each level, where he can easily apply group buffs like Songs of Resilience and Recovery. That's all for today. If you learned something, go strum that like button, and I hope this helps you fight injustice wherever you might find it. This has been my Why. See you in Helmar.